Alright, what's going on, guys? Back here again with my new GTI, and today, as you can tell, maybe if you can tell, we're gonna be tinting the windows. So DIY tint session. So we'll see how it turns out. It's kind of a nerve-wracking job. I'm a perfectionist, so I like to get it right, but it's pretty tough with this kind of stuff. So far, the only thing I've done, just because I want you all to be able to see, is I actually did that side, and I'll show you in a minute. But I also just did this one little side piece here. Side piece. So yeah, and I'll go over the whole process on how I did it as well. Don't worry. I only started with the easiest side, so the fun has only just began. So we'll look into what I've done. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, actually. Very surprising, actually, but still pretty tough. It's not the world's easiest thing to do, without a doubt. And these are pre-cuts too, so the people that cut them out themselves and all that, man, that's tough for sure. See, like if you got a little piece of hair in there, like the slightest piece, like it's already screwed. Like you can't do anything. Luckily it's not that visible. See, like what I'm saying, you can kind of just like see how difficult it is. I'm gonna try to get that piece of hair out of there though. You just gotta soak the fuck out of it. But then it probably went to a lower spot too, so like I said, tinting windows ain't easy. But nothing in this world comes easy, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's literally what you witnessed is pretty much the foundation of tinting. You soak up the back of the windshield where the adhesive can get a good grip on the windshield, on the window itself, and then you squeegee the water out, which also applies it to the whole entire glass. So that's the basics of it. Like I said, I'm gonna go on that side and show you what I've done so far, what kind of a mess I have created. And I'm half joking because it's really not that bad. I'm actually kind of impressed with myself. I will say, I mean, this is a first attempt at this, but I will say, I mean, full disclaimer, I have attempted at tinting my windows on my Lexus, my IS300, as some of you may know that I used to own. So it's not 100% new to me, but I also don't do this every day sort of thing. So I am still a novice, as most would call it, as I would call it. So let's take a look at this side. See, there's like a slight hair in there, but the more you mess with it, the more you can cause damage. So it's like either leave it at that or risk messing it up more by trying to perfect it, you know? These are the pre-cuts that I bought. So far it seems like it's actually really good. It's pretty on point. I mean, if you can't cut this manually any better. So this is how it was before, and this is how it is now. So if you look in here, now you may see some fingerprints and stuff like that, but I mean, it's not bad. I don't see any air bubbles. You're not supposed to roll the windows down for 5 days or so. I did slightly just to make sure I didn't miss any spots up there, but so far not bad. The only one mess up I had is right there, and you can see it better from this side. But when I was feeding the tint into the bottom, like underneath the windshield into the door, there was a slight crease that happened here. Now, surprisingly, it doesn't look as bad as it does as it used to. I was able to press it out. Just after it started to dry up, I was able to press it in until it wasn't as bad. So you can kind of see it. Not terrible. I'm gonna live with it for now. There are a few spots like right there and right there, I think, somewhere in here. I can't even tell anymore, but once it dries out, I feel like it looks better. So at first I was like, damn, this kind of looks like crap, but the more you wait, the better it should look, and the more you can just kind of fix it if there's any errors or fingers, they call it, in there. So the one pain in the ass part is going to be the rear windshield, just because of how round it is. So obviously what they cut out there is flat. It's just tint, like foil paper, and you wrap it around here, it's not gonna fit so easily, right? Like you can squeegee it all you want, but it's not gonna form as a round shape. So you have to heat gun it and kind of push out the air bubbles slowly in the fingers, they call them, which is just an air bubble essentially, and it's gonna slowly form and take the shape of the windshield. But you do it from the inside. I'm just showing you from out here. So that is gonna be the most difficult part, I think. Luckily it's a hatchback, so it's pretty easily accessible instead of like a rear windshield where it's super slanted. Like on my Lexus, I tried that twice. I bought 2 films before I took it to a professional guy to do it, where he just did it his first drive for 50 bucks, which I should have done in the first place, but whatever, it was a learning experience. And what you can do, or what he did, is just kind of crawl back there and do it. I mean, it looked harder than it looked hard, but so yeah, this will be a pain. The fronts also shouldn't be that easy. I started out with the easiest to kind of get a warm up, and I did this one yesterday. I'm gonna do that side. I started one of them, and now I will do the other one. Make sure the headlights are off, and that took way more energy than I should have. But anyway, so here we go. The most important part, as you can kind of tell by me over here, is pretty much to clean it, right? So you can't have any hairs in there, right? You really don't want that, any hairs, any dust particles. It will end up showing on the film. So there are many different steps. If you watch a bunch of videos, which is what I did, you will see that people wipe it down many times. What I do, I think, is more than enough. So you want to wash the window a couple times. So actually I'm going to start from the outside here. So I already did, but I mean, I'll do it again just to kind of give you a better idea. Plus it doesn't hurt to keep it, to get it even more clean. But essentially you want to clean the outside of it, right? So since you will be putting the film on here initially, I use a spray bottle because I don't have that fancy tinting, you know, auto spray, the full auto gun like they have. So you wipe it, make sure you get the rubber gaskets around the door, okay, because a lot of dirt likes to stick on it, like as you can tell. Get the window nice, right? Okay, straightforward. And then what I did is I put a bag here because I don't want to get my whole door wet. It will get this top part wet. You will get some water inside of the door with soap. It's not harmful, it will be fine. Same thing you did on the outside, do to the inside. Wipe the entire window, right? Wipe the rubber gaskets around. A lot of people recommend taking the gaskets out, but I personally don't feel like messing with that, nor do I want to do it. Plus, the more you remove, the more you have to put back together, and I really don't feel like taking it out. And it's still a new car, so I don't want to mess with the originality of it. Once you start taking things out, it won't be back to normal, like it won't be back as good into the same place as it was before, right? So like if you remove it, or if you remove the whole door panel, it may be easier, but if you put it back, you may now hear some kind of a noise, creaking, squeaking, whatever, right? So I'm gonna avoid that as much as I can. So first step, like I said, clean. Another part of the cleaning process, you're gonna want to use a razor and get all the particles off the glass, right? So we got all the main dirt off, but here there may be some dirt stuck to the glass, so you're gonna want to remove that. Get every square inch of the window. It's not that easy to do it, but you can do it. So now we have all the cleaning done and everything prepped. So now we're just ready to install the actual tint on the window, right? So what I'm doing here is you want to make sure that you have the tint lined up with the window. So meaning like it's not upside down or inside out, stuff like that. Just make sure that it's proper. It may look different for different foils or different brands or companies that you may buy. So just take a look at that. In this particular one, I messed up on the other side. I actually put it on and then I cut the tint off or took it off, and then it was upside down. So I was like kind of last minute panicking, but it wasn't a big deal. You obviously just flip it around and it works, right? So here I'm spraying the outside as well as the inside, so you can kind of adhere it and squeegee it to the glass. So once that's all good, you want to also spray the inside of it before you get ready to transfer it. So what you're gonna see, what I'm doing here is just you know, the more water the better, just because you don't want it to be dry and then it might stick, or if it's not lubricated enough with enough water and soap, then you might crease it. You know you want to be able to easily move it without being able to fold it or crease it, because those, once you have a crease or a fold in there, you can't really get that out. So it's not, you want to avoid that pretty much at all costs. So one thing I will say, it's pretty satisfying being able to squeegee that water off and then just seeing it stick to the window. It's kind of a satisfying feeling. But anyway, without any weird comments, also want to make a note. I mean, look at the tools that I'm using. This yellow sponge that I have is just a Bondo sponge. Sorry, not a sponge, but a squeegee. So it's just a Bondo squeegee used to apply Bondo, but it's soft enough where it'll do the job, right? And then another tool that I'm using is a gift card. It's actually an express gift card that I literally just cut a corner just so I can get into the tighter spots. So I mean, the tools you need for the job aren't really that crazy. So anything you can find, like this spray bottle, I mean, I just have it laying around, but you can buy one probably from the dollar store. And you just need water and dish soap. That's essentially it. A few things. So you need dish soap, water, a spray bottle, one softer squeegee and one harder squeegee. And the reason for that is you want the card just so you can, either a card or something more sturdy, more firm, just so you can get it and actually be able to push more of the bubbles out. Otherwise the soft one is just gonna bend, right? But this one, it'll be easier to push all the bubbles out. But so now I'm on the inside of the actual tint, right? So this is the adhesive part. So you want to make sure not to touch this as much as possible. Make sure your clothing doesn't touch it, so you don't get any particles on it, any hairs or anything. It's the worst thing you can do. It's the biggest pain to get off, and a lot of times it doesn't want to come off. And if you saw, I cut a lot of the tint off, but not the tint, but the actual foil off. And I left some on the bottom of it, about 2 to 3 inches, just because you want to be able to protect the inside adhesive of the tint. So like I said, you want to avoid getting any sort of particles or dust on there. So that'll help you as well, especially if you're going to be able to, especially if you're installing it the way I am. So I'm putting it on, and then what you do is, in the generic way, is you put the tint on. Oh, and also be careful not to fold it in half. That's pretty bad. But so what you do, you put the tint on, and then you make sure it fits. You get it all lined up. You squeegee the top part of it to make sure it sticks and all lined up, and then you roll the window back up, and then you feed the tint through the bottom. So yeah, you can see here I'm just lining up the top of the window tint and making sure that it's all lined up, right? So you want to make sure it looks just like you want before you actually start to apply it. But you do want to make sure there's like a very little, I'm talking like a millimeter or 2 gap at the top between the actual windshield and the tint. Just a little bit of clearness, right? Just a line. Just because if the tint is going over the window, you can imagine that it's going to want to fold over, right? So if you start to roll your window up, it'll start to peel easily. So make sure you avoid that. And if you don't really understand what I'm saying, you'll kind of realize it once you're doing it. Because if it's overhanging over the window, then it's just going to peel off pretty easily, and you don't want that, obviously. So like I said, you do the top part of it like that, and then you just roll the window back up. So once you have it up, then you can start to take the bottom part off. You know, I spray a little more in there just to make sure it's all set and ready to go. But then you want to eventually peel off the rest of the actual protectant, right? The tint or foil or whatever. And then from there you go on and you feed it through the bottom. So this is the most difficult part. This is where a lot of times it creases. So be very careful, watch your every movement. But it's totally not that bad. You just kind of feed the one corner at a time. You can dry your hands here and there just because it gets your hands get slippery as well. But once you have, it just takes patience, and with patience you'll come out with a good job. So once you get all the air bubbles out, you just want to continue to spray and squeegee. Make sure you continuously spray, because otherwise it's just gonna end up being a dry squeegee, right? You need to make sure it glides through the tint nice and smoothly. So basically once you do that, the rest of it's pretty simple. The hard part's done, the stressful part's done. It's on the window. You just spray and get all the air bubbles out. That's the part you can take your time, nice and slowly do it. Eventually though, once you do get to the end though, you may start to see air bubbles that form at the bottom of the window itself, or at the top, likely on the bottom though, where you will see a bunch of, they call them fingers. It's like a long air bubble. So what you'll have to do is just heat gun it. You can use a hair dryer if it gets warm enough, or I have a heat gun. You can get these for pretty cheap from Harbor Freight or whatever. And essentially you just heat gun the air bubble, just not too much. You make sure you don't want to shrink it too much or burn the windshield or burn your rubber window gaskets. So take it easy with the heat gun, but you will heat it up a little bit and then just squeegee it down, and over time it will shrink and not come back, right? So the ultimate goal is just to get rid of all of those. But once you got that all good to go, you're pretty much set, right? Look at your window, make sure it's all good, roll it down a few inches to make sure the top of it's good as well, and then you're pretty much done, right? So at this point you've done everything. Now just make sure you let your adhesive dry for the next day or two. I know earlier I said 5 days, but that's a little too much. I think maybe 24 hours is enough, maybe 48. There's no true answer in my opinion. But anyway, that's how you do it. Like I said, that's how you do all the windows. Front's pretty much the same. The rear is a little different because it's more difficult. It's harder to access and also more curvy. But regardless, thank you for watching, and thank you for staying tuned, and good luck if you do this yourself. And stay tuned for the next video. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you.